Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about increasing the price of rentals. So, putting the rent up in a, it could be an apartment or a freestanding property. It doesn't really matter, but the consequences and effects that sometimes occur when just going for a few more bucks. The rent is, for example, $100 a week. Well, I think I can get $102 a week out of these. But, really a minor inconsequential increase that property owners feel they're obligated to do based on the statistical propaganda grifter machine that operates all across the real estate industry, constantly trying to put as much momentum and energy and effort and again propaganda into pushing up prices, not property for sale and rentals and so on. So I just want to talk about this guy. I know he's inherited some properties, and so he's done rather well at it. He wouldn't call him a genius or particularly business minded, but he's got a property that I jog past on my, I've got a few different jogging circuits I go on, and on one of them I go past the property that this particular property he owns. And I was talking to him about it, and he was saying that he got a circular from some real estate advisory firm, information advisory firm that he subscribes to. It's not expensive. It costs him $100 a year or something to subscribe to, and it tells him what they say he should be charging for the rent. Now, the rent he was, I'll just use round numbers here to make it easy, but the rent he was charging was $100 a week, and they said that he could really put it up to $110 a week, and that was the top end of the range. So he decided, well, I can get another $10 a week. And did he need the $10? Well, no. But he was sort of concerned. Well, I as a property owner, and I don't want to be exploited by. I don't want to think that I'm they can take me for a few bucks. So I was talking to him. I said, well, look, I don't know. And I was talking to him about the quality of the tenant. And because just having a tenant in there, that's a long-term tenant, they take care of the place. They do a lot of the little maintenance jobs that really are the property owner's responsibility. But because they're a tenant that cares and they're, reliable people, quality tenants, they do a lot of these little things that the property owner would have to do in the real world, and the property owner is legally obligated to do. So, I was talking to you about the quality of tenant, and that this would this be something you could factor in? Is the property that he's renting, is it fully up to date with the latest mod cons? Is the kitchen 25 years old, and really it needs remodeling, because the top of the range amount that he can rent that he can get is for something that's been modernized within the last 5 years, so that the kitchen, the bathrooms, and so they're no more than 5 years old in terms of when they were last remodeled or renovated. So he was saying no, it's older than that, but he thinks he can get away with it. The tenant's been there for a while. He doesn't think they'll want to move, so he can stiff them for an extra few bucks, and why not? The quality of the tenant, he went, sort of, who cares? And it's very easy when you've got a good tenant that is taking good care of the place to not value that, and to any tenant will do that, and they won't. There's very few, sort of high quality tenants around. There are some, but not many. So anyway, he decides to put up the rent to the maximum, and the tenant was annoyed and decided to find other accommodation and leave the place wherever they went, and so he had the place, because he wanted a top rent, and so he had the place unoccupied for a few months, trying to find he refused to drop the rent. So all the other work, the mowing the lawns and trimming the hedges, whatever else he had to get people in to do. So he had to pay them to do it. He doesn't live close to where the property is, so it's a bit of a pain for him to look after it. But anyway, he's finally gets someone in, but they're not a good tenant. They don't care about the place. They're not going to do any work. It's a rental place. They don't really care. They're there temporarily. They're not there for long. They know that they're paying top drawer rent, so why should they also go to the trouble of looking after the place? And so there's a nature strip just around the edge, just quite close to a corner, and there's a nature strip on the edge, and the previous tenant would water the nature strip and mow it and keep that looking nice. So the whole sort of presentation, as you sort of, well, for me anyway, as I jogged past it, it always looked very presentable and tidy and well kept and so on. The leaves on the roof were always cleared away, and it again always looked very tidy and presentable. Now, as it turns out, these people aren't doing any of that. That area of grass now is almost turned to bare dirt. There's no nice green grass there. The few shrubs that had been there have all died, not being watered or trimmed or whatever. So it's the tree sort of overgrowing the edge has started to push against the fence, and that's going to, the fence is now damaged, and so on and so forth. So I was talking to him again, and he was now wailing and moaning about how difficult it all was and how much trouble he was now having, because as the house is getting older, the previous high quality tenant was making little repair jobs themselves. They were fixing this and repairing that and tightening screws. They were replacing replacing the screws in the decking around the house as that was getting old. Some of the wood was perishing and they were putting new and bigger screws. So as he explains it anyway, he didn't realize just how much work, a little bit here, a little bit there, that the high quality tenant was doing at their own time and expense, by the way. Now, if something goes wrong this time, these people, the new tenants, are calling him and saying, hey, you have to fix this, you have to fix that. So he's either got to come out and do it himself or he's got to hire people to do it. So given the degradation of the house, given or the property generally, and he's actually not in front at all financially. He's realized that there is a lot of value in a high quality tenant, and even though he's not getting top rent, as in the very top of the top, the high quality tenant, it has a certain value, consistency, reliability. They take care of the place. It's always looking nice, and so on and so forth. And this sort of brings me to the thing that in the real estate industry all across the Western world, Australia as well as anywhere else, the impetus, the focus, the laser-like focus is to push prices up, and everyone's vested in that to the toppest of the top dollar, the highest sell price. And if they can sell one property in the area for some unusually high price to some cashed up Chinese guy that wants to launder his money, then that becomes the new benchmark for the pricing. But it's all artificial. It's all a house of fucking cards in reality. None of it is related around intrinsic value, whether this is house prices or rents that are going through the roof. So this circular that the guy gets, these information groups that say, well, the rent you should be charging is X. When you actually drill down in it, and I had to explain this to him again. He's not the brightest guy. He's inherited all this. He realizes now that this rent is only for a modern, up-to-date, recently remodeled, renovated house, and that there's he's now come to view that the rent, a high quality tenant is worth 10 to 15% of the rent. So in as much as they take care of the place, they sort of do the right thing. For example, one one of the water pipes at the back of the property had sprung a leak and was leaking into the like the cellar storage area, or that type of thing, and it was leaking into the cellar, and there was some the ground that some of the supports on the ground and some of the wooden structures in there had been seriously damaged by the water leak, and he's had to replace those, and that was quite expensive. And the tenants, I didn't notice, I didn't see, but it was clear that the tenant, in his view at least, the tenant didn't give a shit. And so these are all things, little things they may be, or bigger things as the case may be, but this is where the value of a high quality tenant comes in. So now you could talk about quality and any high quality employee, high quality whatever, high quality tenant. It doesn't matter, but the value add from the high quality people that care and give a shit and are concerned and will address serious issues as and when they arise. There is a certain value in that, and the value may vary depending on the circumstances. But this idea of the quality tenant is something that isn't really valued. Some may value in an isolated person here or there, but he's had to learn this lesson the hard way. This guy's now entered a cycle where he's got short-term tenants, and recently a tenant did was running behind. They were a month or whatever behind in the rent, and he'd started commenced eviction proceedings against them. And he said he was worried because they didn't have much furniture. They could fit all the furniture into a smallish truck, like a 2-ton truck or something. And so he was sort of a little concerned that they could get out of the place quickly and easily, whereas somebody with a lot of furniture, clearly they're settled and clearly that they don't have that sort of arbitrary discretion. Anyway, they owed him a couple of months, rent, whatever that was for that particular place, and then they just disappeared and they're gone, and he's never going to recover that rent. And so again, but his focus wasn't getting the maximum amount of rent he could, really squeezing, but he's now changed his view, and whereas he considers himself the victim in all this, I tried to explain to him that by pushing for the top dollar, squeezing for the top dollar, haven't you created the circumstances that or certainly facilitated to a large extent that you're now in? So a high quality, you can use the word loyalty, I guess. A high quality tenant has a value, whereas a low quality tenant will in the end will cost you a lot more. And he's kind of come to that realization. And as a lot of people have, the rental property at the moment, a lot of people have acquired rental property through inheritance and so on. A lot of them haven't earned it or made it or haven't acquired these properties through expertise and knowledge and competence and value building and wealth building. It's just come to them, and they've got that arrogance of people who've easily acquired things they haven't earned or deserved. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.